Welcome everyone to another CTC software webinar. My name is Chris Berger, Director of Technical Services here at CTC, and today we are going to discuss some more advanced workflows utilizing a shared parameter manager. Just kind of show you a couple of things about the app that maybe you didn't know, and a couple of really powerful workflows that will help speed up the process of managing and editing your shared parameter file. Before we begin, I want to encourage everyone to ask questions using the questions panel. If you are attending a live presentation here, I'll be monitoring that and we'll answer them as we go when it makes sense, and make sure to take time at the end to answer anything that I missed or came in late or whatever. And if you're watching the recorded version on our YouTube channel, please use the comment section below. And I will make sure, one of us, we monitor that, so one of us will get back to you as soon as we possibly can. And with that, let's get after it. Now, if any of you have spent lots of time making content, or even if you haven't spent a lot of time making content, building families in Revit, you know that editing and creating and managing shared parameters and getting those parameters either into your families or your projects, for that matter, can be a challenge. It's all there. You can do everything that you need to do. It just takes time. One parameter at a time, one setup at a time. And there's just not a lot of good ways to quickly and efficiently manage your parameters natively within Revit. Again, everything's there. You can do it all. It's just not as efficient as it could be. And then what if you come across two parameter files, right? You've got your master one or your corporate one that you guys want to use on all projects and on all families, but then you find one hanging out in your families folder for a project. And now you've got these, what we don't even know what these are for necessarily, right? And there's a handful in there, or maybe you downloaded a bunch of manufacturer equipment or content from another source. It had its own set of shared parameters that were being used, and maybe you need to incorporate those somehow, or you want to see what they are, see if you've got anything that's similar, or if not, let's take advantage of it. We can do all of that inside of Shared Parameter Manager, and that's what we're going to talk about today, is how can we do comparisons, how can we batch create or batch modify some things and get those changes into projects and or families. So let's just jump right into it. So today we're gonna talk about what, if you haven't seen the Shared Parameter Manager before, I'll do a really brief intro to the UI for you. But then we're gonna show you how to create parameters in groups, and we're gonna batch create them so you don't have to do them onesie twosies. And then gonna show you how we can compare parameter files with each other. Also gonna show you how to take parameters found in your project and export them to their own shared parameter file so that they can be compared against your corporate master. We're going to take that, whatever we end up with, and we are going to show you how to load those into your families and how to configure them for loading into a new family or an existing family, or into a project for that matter. And then we got an extra little cute feature where I'll show you how to export all your parameters and groups to a spreadsheet, just so, because it's hard to read in Notepad, right? But the Excel document, a little bit easier to understand and easier to read. So I will get into that. And while we're getting into that, because I do everything in a demo, I had one question pop up that I'll take over right now. And it is it better to have discipline-specific shared parameter files or one master file? It's a great question. Personally, I think you should have one file for everybody. And really for one main reason, and that's just parameter management. Because now it's all in one spot. It's easier to track things down. What happens if you have a parameter, say width, for example, or description, or appears in schedule, right? Those are pretty common parameters. Can find yourself in various disciplines. Now we have one for each discipline. right? How do we handle that? And then if you do end up with that kind of scenario and someone needs to use a family in a different disciplined project for some reason, or for whatever reason, if they're using a CMS and they find the wrong family that was built for electrical, but they use it in their architectural lighting plans, right? Like now things aren't going to schedule the way they're supposed to. So I just assume use one parameter file, and you can organize it in a certain way so that it makes sense. And I'll show you how that kind of can work depending on what it is you're working on. But I do recommend one parameter file. So share, and there's another one that came in, and I haven't forgotten it. It's coming. I will answer it. So with Shared Parameter Manager, this is the basic user interface. So just a quick overview, this first front page here is where we're editing and managing the shared parameter file itself, right? So on the left here, this is where you would see your active and your current shared parameter file, whether you're making a new one or you're managing and editing your corporate master. On the right side here, this is where you would load up a second shared parameter file and compare it with the one here on the left, or your corporate file. And we can merge them together and do things with it. It's pretty cool. The second tab here, and I'll show you how all this works. The second tab is the Load Shared Parameters tab. And this is where we can load up our master shared parameter file, create parameter sets or groups of parameters that can then be defined and loaded into a project and or family. So I'll show you how all this works. And then there's some export options and some group configuring going on here. We'll talk about all of that because it all ties together. Now, when it comes to the Manage tab and setting up your shared parameter file, say you wanted to start fresh, you didn't have one, you can click New and give it a name. So we'll just call it today's date master, for example. Pick a place to put it. And right now, I've just made the text file. That's effectively all I've done. At this point, we can start defining the groups. Now, the groups in Revit, you make a group, you make it, you're done. And then you got to hit new group and do it again, you're done. And you can do it that way here as well, but we also have the ability, this window itself offers up the batch creation option where you can just start typing the group names that you want, like dimensions. I can't type dimensions text. And you just hit enter to create a new line. Graphics, construction, or maybe you want one specific to doors, and maybe you want to separate that out to doors for your panels and doors for your frames, and however you want to set it up. You can, or maybe you do exterior instead and doors dash interior, like, and the parameters that are unique to those are what you would put in there. And you can just set it up this way. You could also parse out your dimensions and have it dimensions by discipline, right? Maybe you've got electrical dimensions, and you've got mechanical dimensions, and architectural and structural, and then maybe you have your common dimensions. Right? You can have all of that laid out accordingly in your parameter groupings here. Just by I can't type today. Just by spelling it out, typing it out. These groups are just groups. It helps us organize and manage the parameter file a little bit better. They really don't do much outside of that, right? Our tools are designed to help place the parameters in the proper groups if those groups exist in Revit, like in your properties windows. But outside of that, this is just organization for us. So if you had a multidisciplined environment, this is how I would set it up right here. Dimensions dash architecture, and then have a parent, or I guess a generic category or grouping for dimensions that apply to everyone, right? For angle, length, width, height, depth, thickness, and then maybe under identity data, you've got another one for various, that's general grouping, and then you've got identity data for structural and electrical and mechanical. You can do all of that. And when you hit OK, it adds them to the list. Well, maybe you just want to use what Revit offers, what Autodesk has put inside of Revit. You can do that by saying add default groups. And this will give you a list of all of the various groups that are present inside of the Revit space. Many of them are parsed out by discipline and sub-discipline in some cases. So it makes the creation of these groups that much easier, and it just a little bit less for you to worry about. Certain categories like graphics or, dimensions is another one. You might need to go ahead and add those subcategories there, and that's okay. And since I've already added dimensions, I can delete that one because I don't need to add it twice. I can do the same thing with my graphics. What else did I add? Construction and text. Get rid of those. I'm just going to delete these so I don't have duplicates and add the rest. And now I've got dimensions for architecture and electrical, and I can add as many other sub-disciplines as I would like to this. At this point, you can go ahead and start adding individual parameters. And the flow is very similar as adding groups, right? You can do one at a time if you'd like you do in Revit, or if you've got a bunch of parameters that are going to be defined in the same fashion, group, discipline, and type, add them all at the same time. So for example, I have my dimensions group here picked, and I want to go ahead and add all the basics: angle, depth, width, length, height, thickness maybe. I can add all that now, hit OK. They're going to come in. They're all going to be defined this way. They're in the dimension group, and their parameter type will be length in this case. And at this point, we have three other settings that we can worry about. We have tooltips. Is it a modifiable parameter, and will it be visible to the user or not? These are all options that you can put in now. You can do some of these in the Revit add parameter window or create parameter window. And I suggest you can type it in now if you'd like, or with some of these, you can come back and type them in after the fact. It's just right here in front of you if you need to. Right? So if you wanted to make a change because you missed something or you spelled it wrong, at any point, you can go to modify, and it shows you everything again, where you can change the parameter type, you can change the discipline and type, add a tooltip. Like that, hit OK. And because I just added a tooltip, we're OK. Now, one of the things that we can do really easily here that is not as easy and quick to do inside of the Revit windows is I can change the definition or the parameter type or the discipline for that matter. So maybe this thickness parameter should just be text, right? I don't need to link it to a dimension. We wouldn't really do this, but just hypothetically speaking, maybe I wanted to do that. So I can change it to text and hit OK. We're going to get the message saying, hey, you're making a change to this parameter that is going to result in the changing of the parameters GUID, which is a normal thing. That's what theoretically would happen in Revit if you didn't have to delete it first to remake it from scratch. Here, we're just bypassing the delete, allowing you to modify it, but in reality, what's kind of happening in the back end is we are actually deleting it and remaking it on your behalf. That's what the app is doing. So in this case, this is what I'm intending for to happen. I'm just saving myself a step of having to manually delete it. Now, at this point, because I did that, if I did have that being used elsewhere, I'd have to go back and update it throughout all my families that were using it, and maybe the projects that it had been loaded into for consistency purposes, which I could do via family processor and make sure that the families are using the right content or the right parameters and parameter definitions. But in this case, because I don't want to be wrong, that was only hypothetical, we're going to go ahead and put that back at length, hit OK. get the same message again. I'm going to hit OK one last time, be done. Now, so that's, parameter management and adding, or I should say, creating and editing of parameters. We've got the groups. You can rearrange things here if you need to. There's some, you can move up and down your parameters, Now, the next thing I want to talk about, let's go ahead and save this real quick. Right there, save. Is combining parameter files or reviewing them at the very least, right? So there's a couple of different ways to get your hands on something. So one way is a parameter file gets distributed, right? It comes with a content pack that you downloaded from some various website. Maybe you found one on your network tied to a specific project, or maybe you had multiple parameter files. Maybe it were broken out by discipline, and maybe now you want to consolidate those. And so we're going to first compare the two together. So that's what this other window over here is for, where you can browse to another parameter file for, say, a project, and it'll show you what's there. And maybe this came from the manufacturer, and it's all your, your mechanical equipment parameters or door parameters, for example. In this case, this one was pulled right from a project, and I'll show that in a moment. What I can do now is start to compare the two together. Where are the conflicts? What parameters are unique? Where do I have duplicates? A conflict would be, let's say, the names are the same, but the goods are different, or the goods are the same, but the names are different. Right? That's a conflict. Unique are, they don't exist in the other file. Duplicates are, they're the exact same through and through, same name, same GUID. And the naming issues, this is something that we think is an issue where, special characters in a lot of cases, or unsupported characters. If you can't use it in a file name in Windows, you probably can't use it here either. So that's what the naming issues piece is all about. So if I wanted to check for, let's check for conflicts. Do I have any conflicts? And I can hit show only those conflicts. And if I had any, those would show up in orange. So I'm going to open up a different file here in a moment. You'll see I've got some conflicts. And then, so now I can, check everything's unique at this point, right? Because I made these from scratch. I didn't create these anywhere else. And this particular project file wasn't using those, or they hadn't been added to it in that fashion. So I can effectively just merge these two together and create a singular master parameter file, or I can pick and choose what I want to bring across. Okay. Now, since I don't have any problems, what I'm going to do is just show you how to start this merging process. So let's say I want to bring over all of these fire suppression parameters, and I want to add them to my general group over here. They're in general here, they should be in general here. That makes sense. I like that. So with these selected, and I can hold down shift and grab them, or hold down control and pick and choose, you can press and drag those to the group that you want them to be in. Now, they all just disappeared and aren't showing over here. And that's okay, because I'm telling it to show me only the unique stuff. And if I change this to show duplicates, there we go. Now it's going to show everything again, because they technically are duplicates. So it's not removing anything from the parameter file on the right. It's only copying and pasting into the parameter file on the left. So you don't have to worry about breaking anything or making extreme changes. All I can do with this file is review it and effectively copy paste to the left. That's it. I can't edit. I can't delete. I can only review and copy paste. Basically what we're doing. So I'm going to switch it back over to unique. And now maybe, let's see. Let's grab these 3 identity data parameters, and I'll drag those across here as well. And we'll go ahead and grab some extra manufacturer data to go under model properties. And then if I set it back to none to show me everything, so now I'll see all the general ones, the 3 identity datas, and a handful of model properties. So this is one way, potentially, to take and start fresh, right? Or from scratch in a way. Start fresh. New parameter file. Take your existing ones. Maybe you've uncovered a number of different parameter files in your office. You had what you thought was your master, but then maybe you found a bunch for particular projects, or squirreled away somewhere else buried on the network somewhere. Well, now what we can do is either start comparing them against the master, or start a brand new file, get the groups added the way you want them and based off what you need, and start loading up those other shared parameter files and bringing what you need across until you've gotten through them all, and now you have one singular shared parameter file to distribute to the office. And then if changes are made to the parameter definitions or the parameter types, then you can use family processors to go ahead and update your content to utilize the new parameters. Okay, so I said I was going to show you another way to generate a shared parameter file based off the project. So one of the things that we can do here is we have this export button up here up at the top. And we have the ability to export from the project or export from project and families. So there's slightly different options here. Both export the shared parameters from a project. The second one will also find what's used in all the families that have been loaded in and export those as well. So depending on what you want to do, and you might want to grab the second option here, especially if a lot of the content being used is coming from a third party, right? It's not necessarily stuff from your content library. So by doing either option, you will get the opportunity to specify a new shared parameter file and give it a name. And I'm going to go ahead and just throw a couple exclamation points at the front so it shifts to the top of my list. And it's going to do that export. You'll get a little status bar that pops up somewhere. It depends on how many monitors you have going on. Let you know how long it's going to take or how far along in the process it is. Now, and when it's doing this, you're gonna get a log at the end. And depending on the project and what content is being used, you might get a message similar to this, because it's telling me it found duplicates for frame material and finish, actual width and heights. And really what that means is that they were defined differently. And this is where having shared parameter manager to compare parameter files together before you're using them is beneficial, because now I can avoid this in the future, where I can potentially avoid this in the future. Things are going to happen. You probably will never avoid it every time, but you can get close, right? So it's found frame material and finish a couple of different times, right? That just means then one was exported successfully, and it found 2 others that were duplicates. So I had 3 of them in there, which is ridiculously crazy, but it happens. You know, it really just depends on where you get your content from or who made it. So, but if you need to, you can save this. You can go back and start to figure things out and dial it in and try to get to the bottom of the duplicate parameters. So it went ahead and exported this. You have the ability to open it right now, and what it's going to do, well, that's going to just open my log again. But let's do this. I'm going to bring that. Oh, I'll actually open it over here. I don't want to open it there. Go back to my office or my new master, this one. And I want it to open over here. So I'm going to go ahead and grab the new project export. Okay. Yep, I got duplicates. That's great. But that's okay. And let's start reviewing this. All right. So now I can start dig in and see what did I get. So I'm very curious about the frame, the materials and finishes. So here we go. It actually exported all three of them in this case. It told me that I had them so I could go look for it, right? So if I wanted to find conflicts, it knows now that I've got conflicts in the base dimensional properties that I had added because they have the same name, but they have different widths. And if you hover over this long enough, it'll tell you what the problem is in a little kind of tooltippy sort of deal. So it's clear and obvious now what my problem is. If I switch this back to not naming issues, but if I go back to none, I can now scroll down here and see what my issues are. So I've got a couple of different height parameters. If you wanted to actually edit these and really dig in and see if one text, the other one's not, then you can open it up over here on the left instead and start to edit those parameters. It's going to bark at you every single time you open it because it's got duplicates. Just a reminder that you actually have duplicates here. But now I can edit this and find out what do we got. So I have a material parameter there. It's also an actual material parameter, so that's good. They're all material parameters. They were all just defined with different widths. Now at this point, we get to pick which one we want to use. And maybe what you want to do then is if you knew which project it came out of, so because I just did it, I know the project, I can go back to the project and find out which materials I actually need, which ones I don't need, maybe delete what I don't need and re-export, right? That's one way to clean that up. The other way here is just to pick one and run with it. Kind of up to you how you want to deal with that particular issue, because it's not going to tell you what the GUID is, right? There is a way if you wanted to, and I can show you that here too. We have this option for two spreadsheets. And what this does is it'll take a shared parameter file and convert it or create an Excel document out of it. So I'm going to grab this one, the one I just exported, and it turns it into a Microsoft Excel file. So it's going to open it up in Excel now, and I can review this. And the reason why I like doing this is, A, this is 100 times easier to read than the Notepad file is. If you've ever opened up the shared parameter file inside a Notepad, it's not the easiest thing to understand. At least here, I know there's a GUID, what the GUID is. I know what the names that are being used. I can see the data type, and you know if it was set to be visible or not, or is it a modifiable parameter or not, right? So, for example, maybe we discovered that one of the material properties that we found were set to be a text property instead of a length or instead of a material property. If that was the case, I don't want the text one, I want the material one. So that's the one I'm going to hold on to. So we have the ability to at least start reviewing it a little bit easier. And this is just a better way to review it. Can't do anything with it here except review it. And then you get a list of all the groups that were found and exported and what's being used, which that part's easy. It's this part, reviewing the actual parameters, that gets a little bit challenging. So this is something that I find very useful when trying to get to the bottom of some of these parameter issues that you stumble across every now and again. So I guess now I should clarify a question before I get to the next piece that came in. Can we convert project parameters into shared parameters? So, and it's a two-part question. So yes, right? So if they were added to the project and they were shared parameters from the project. Now, from Revit's standpoint, you can export parameters, but that's not a very fun process either, right? So within your project parameter window here, sometimes you have the ability to run the export. And I think right here. So if it was a shared parameter, you can export it that way, right? But you got to do them one at a time. And it becomes very, very tedious. Now, if they were added to the project and were pulled from a shared parameter file, now Shared Parameter Manager will help you export all of those in one shot, and it will generate a new shared parameter file. So that is one way to get them in. The second part of to its own file. Then you have, can we migrate shared parameter from a text file we don't have into our company file? So if you don't have the shared parameter file, but you have a project that is using those shared parameters, whether they were manually added to the project or with a bunch of content or a bunch of families loaded into said project, then yes, Shared Parameter Manager will either export just the ones in the project or the ones in both the project and the families. So there you have it. Hopefully that clarifies that. Okay, now let me get my parameter. So I'm going to open up my master, the one I like to use all of the time. And this is my corporate master. It does all my door stuff. It does all my MEP stuff, all my structural, everything. And what I want to do real quick is just, I'm going to load up the one I had exported. Get my message again, because I know, but I want to show some of these other pieces here real quick. So if we have anything that's a duplicate, and hit show only duplicates. So now I know that some of these parameters exist in the project because they came from my parameter file, which is great, makes me happy. For conflicts, we know some of them came from a different parameter file, which is a little concerning, and aren't necessarily in the same groups, right? Who knows? Yeah, so there, we got some masonry ones in the masonry bucket, but not in the dimensions bucket. So really, they were added to the project in a certain way, but they weren't that way in my parameter file. So and they've got different grids. So now I get to go ahead and choose which ones I want to keep and take a note of this so that you can go back and update some of your content or verify that the content you are using in your projects and in your families is pulling the right parameters. So hopefully this can help you clean some of that up. And you would really only know to need to do this if you're having a lot of issues with scheduling. But this is the perfect way to go ahead and get to the root of the issue and use family processors then to help clean it all up, all your content up after the fact. Now, last but not least is the loading of shared parameters. Now, I'm going to go ahead and open up my master. And the open master button works great because I already had it open over here. If I didn't have it open over here, you would then need to go browse for it, and that's okay. Or if you were trying to do something else before, but now you need to load from the master, you can go browse to it. This tab is great at getting new projects off the ground and running, especially if you know there's parameters you have to add to your project. Like maybe for a fact you need to add, you're starting a particular type of a project. Maybe it's a healthcare project. And they're a little different than some of the other, say, office buildings that you work on. And you have to add custom parameters for your rooms and your spaces and areas, and maybe for your sheets and title blocks that aren't going to come in from the families that you're using, but you wouldn't use it on every single project. So what you can do here is create a parameter set. And maybe it's for healthcare rooms, we'll call it, or anything really. I've got a dozen or a half dozen different ones here for manufacturing properties or door panel parameters or pipe systems or just basic product info with a bunch of manufacturer stuff. You can create as many different sets as you want, especially if you think and that you're going to have to do this again on the next project or a different project in the future, or for a family. We'll get to that in a moment. Now I can come down here and find any parameter that would be applicable to my healthcare rooms. And that might just be stuff underneath other or identity data or text and symbols. And it just kind of depends on what you're trying to do here. And you just find what you're looking for and click the little arrow to get it into your new parameter selection set. I'm going to grab those, and we'll go back up into identity data, and let's grab you know what, that's fine. I'm good with that. I was gonna maybe see if I had another one in there. Not that group. Anyway, it can be, well, you know what, let's do it. I need to add something else here. The reason why I want to do that is because I want to show multiple groups. So let's go ahead and do that. We'll do that, and we'll grab those two. So now at this point, as part of my master shared parameter file, I now have this healthcare rooms parameter selection set. And what I can do with this is define the parameter for use in a project. All right, so now I can grab these parameters, whether it's all of them or just one at a time, because they need to have different properties, and make sure the discipline, the type of parameter is correct as per how it was defined, where it's going to show up in the properties in my projects. Do I want it to show up under text? Do I want it to show up under other or somewhere else? Right? You get to choose now where you need it to go. So if I want it to go somewhere other than other, I can do that, whether it's text or general or graphics or you name it. So I'm going to put mine under general. These additional ones down here, I'm going to put under identity data just to have some fun with it. And then I can define if they need to be instance properties or type properties, right? But because I'm choosing stuff that's about to go to a room, I should probably leave them just as plain instance. So now I can specify the categories that I need to assign them to. Rooms. And actually, I can go through and grab all of these and hit and make sure that they all get attached to rooms. And maybe I want them to be a part of my areas as well. And just to cover all my bases, we'll add them to spaces. And at this point, I can hit load parameters. Now, anytime I have a project that would need these 8 healthcare parameters for rooms or for spatial entities, I can open up Shared Parameter Manager with that project open and load my shared parameter file, grab that set from the list, and away we go. And it's going to remember it's already defined. This will be set. All I have to do is set it and click load. If I want to change it, I can change it, but it's going to remember everything I had done. And now my project has these 8 parameters added to the project parameters list, and I can go ahead and throw them into a schedule, and away we go. They'll show up in the properties of all my rooms and spaces. We're all set. Part 2 to this is not just loading into projects, but loading into families. It's a little bit different, so I'm going to show it to you. So I got to close it. We'll go to a family, and I'm starting a new door family. For me, those are always going to have the same set of parameters. And yes, I could always edit an existing door family, and now I've got everything I need. But now I need to make sure I'm editing one that's very close to what I'm working with. So let's do this. I'm going to go grab my corporate master again. And in this case now, I can switch over to my door group, and this will have all of the parameters that I've used in the past for creating door families. And if I want to now, I can just load everything in because I've defined it already. But if you want to take a moment and review some of the stuff, you can. Like, where should some of these things live? Maybe you want to make a change to how you had set it up previously, or you're setting up for the first time, you've never done it, and that's okay. You set them up. So this is a material. This is all material. Let's just reset some of this stuff because I haven't touched this with the setup yet. So let's go ahead and do it. I'm going to grab materials, finishes here, and I've got a bunch of dimensional properties here. And we'll put those under dimensions. And once you've gotten through the list and you've defined exactly what you need them to do, whether it's individually or in batches, you hit load. And it's going to take the definition of every single parameter that you've chosen in that set, load them into your family, set the properties and the groupings as were defined here, and you're done. Now you can turn around and build the rest of the family, start drawing the reference plans, associating the dimensions, creating the geometry, flexing and testing, boom, away we go. So that's the beauty of shared parameter manager when it comes to starting new projects or updating an existing project or starting new families. We can batch load those in and have them all pre-configured, so we're letting the app do all the dirty work instead of us individually adding a parameter, defining it, and then individually adding that to the family. Like, it's a big process, takes a ton of time. Right now I could be going and getting a cup of coffee or having some lunch, or at least getting my lunch. By the time I got back, it'd be done. So it's pretty slick, and will save us a lot of extra time just getting things off the ground and running. Now, almost done. We're going to see the message pop up here in a moment, and then we'll go open up family types and take a look at it. I did get a couple of errors, so I'm curious to know what I screwed up. Yeah. So I didn't define frame type. So this is a family and type parameter. This one didn't get properly defined because it's supposed to get associated to the Windows category, because that's how I define my frames. But I don't have a window preloaded into my door family, so it's going to fail on me every single time. Can't add a family type parameter to a family unless that family is already nested in, and that's just a Revit thing. You can't do that through the API. So had I had that family loaded in, I'd have been fine. And I'm going to get the same issue with them all because it's the panel. Same problem. I got to have a door panel loaded in to go ahead and make sure that those two parameters work. So that's what these errors stand for. But now I know, I forgot to do something prior to this, or my door template that I'm trying to start from wasn't defined properly. So that's on me for not remembering to load those two pieces in first. But otherwise, it did everything that I told it to, and would have had I had those other ones loaded in. But if I go to family types, here we are. I got my materials, I've got all my dimensions, and I've got everything that I hadn't defined, but it's there. It did everything I told it to do. Absolutely everything I told it to do, which is great. So had I taken another couple of minutes and reorganized a few things, I'd have more up under dimensions and probably a few things tucked under other. So it did great. But now I can build the family the way I need to build the family. I've got everything I need, and I didn't have to spend an hour and a half adding everything to the project or to the file. And that sums everything up. Just going to open this back up again. I hope today you learned a couple of things about how Shared Parameter Manager can assist with either managing and creating your existing shared parameter file, merging, reviewing, and possibly merging two shared parameter files together to consolidate things, and certainly how Shared Parameter Manager can help you configure parameter sets to be loaded into your projects and or your families. So a lot of little features there that not everyone always knows about, and sometimes ones you don't see in a little quick hitter demo. So I hope you got something out of this today, and that'll take care of us for now. So I want to say thank you. I appreciate you guys. It's been a pleasure, and we look forward to seeing you at the next webinar. Take care, everybody.